Assalamu alaikum. Uh, just wanted to make a quick Ramadan reflection. It's actually reminded of something really beautiful today on the phone. Um, Talking to a friend of mine who lives back in Philadelphia. And we were talking about the need for manhood um, and womanhood, right? Because it implies, you need people just strongly rooted in being who they are in a deep and profound sense of belief in God and how that can actually be very nourishing to the soul. So at first we were talking about we were talking about actually some political things, and we were talking about the recent election and how a number of white voters in America, uh, particularly males, felt very emasculated. And we were both saying that actually we could kind of, at least on that level, we could identify with that frustration, right? We don't identify with Trump as the solution, but we could most certainly see, where that frustration was coming from. And then I shared a reflection of mine about Star Wars, and particularly um, Darth Vader, right? Anakin Skywalker, and that in many ways Anakin was, he never knew who his father was. Was raised without a father, and then of course lost his mother young, and without that murabbi, right? Without that person to instill, uh, a sense of manhood, which includes things like, responsibility, accountability. That Anakin turns to the dark side. Um, so we were talking about that. And we said, we need to not only focus on aqidah, while aqidah is important, right, in terms of teaching people the correct creed in which to believe in, there's a real problem that if we have people believing in the so-called correct creed, right, and we were saying, whether that's Athari or Ashari, right? So we're not talking about just within one particular little sect. We're being inclusive, but we were saying that that's all fine and well to teach the correct creed, but if due to the deficiencies of a person's soul, their actions may then actually lead them to the fire. And one of the reflections that he shared with me was the need to see the last day in your everyday, and the need to see, your life now connected to your life in the hereafter. And I think this is an important component of teaching religion that, while rooted, as we said, in correct belief, while rooted in authentic sources and whatnot, it does, in some sense, go beyond just that. Um, because I was in agreement that I felt that the average person is, in some ways, we're all dealing with this kind of toxic background radiation of the dunya, right? If you want to think about it, it's like uh, Adam's, and I'm speaking, metaphorically here, right? Adam's expulsion from paradise and being sent down to earth, and then of course that's how we all got here. It's kind of like sent to this radioactive zone, right? And that the world is very chafing, right? And we've seen that just in the last couple months with uh, the attacks in Manchester, the attack in London, the attack in Portland, the attack in Iraq, Iraq, the attack in now in Iran, right? And these are, I don't mean this to be a comprehensive summary of all these events. But the world can be a very chafing experience. And that if you don't have something to root you in this life, to give you a sense not only of purpose, but almost to give you a kind of ablative armor, like something that allows you to deal with the radiation poisoning of the dunya, right, of this worldly life, dunya meaning worldly life, then you will go mad. And when we look at the psychological profile of some of these people committing heinous acts, right, we will say, oh, these are people are criminals. And undoubtedly they are. But at one point in time, every one of these people committing these heinous acts was a small child, like my daughter, who's, 5 years old. So how did this person go being a sweet, innocent child to an adult that feels entitled to lash out and to take people's lives? And a lot of it I do see is this lack of manhood, womanhood, personhood. And I do feel that we need to rejuvenate our connection to the ultimate truth, which is this is not permanent. It's nice, but it's not permanent. And it's not our final destination. And I think we need to resuscitate and rejuvenate a healthy discussion of what the next life is. And as he said, he reminded me of that beautiful aspect of, there's many passages in the Quran where God says that he sent his prophets, bashiran wa nadhiran. And in that order, he sent them to give good news and to warn. And I think we tend to, or we have fallen into one of two unfortunate categories. We either over accentuate one over the other, meaning that we over accentuate the hellfire and everything is horrible and bad, or we over accentuate the good as if the fire isn't real, judgment isn't real, and that by God being merciful, by being Ar-Rahman wa Shadidul Iqab, these are not mutually exclusive, right? God being merciful and God being punishing are not mutually exclusive. So we have fallen into the trap of hyper accentuating one over the other. But still, there is a message, there's a pattern that we can see in the revelation, Bashiran wa Nadhiran, giving good news, and then warning. And to this, we talked some more, and he said, these people that feel that, because, the world has all gone to pot or has all become bad, that they can just lash out. He said, the Prophet ﷺ, peace and blessings be upon him, the Prophet Muhammad had a Jewish neighbor who, and this isn't meant to be some condemnation of all Jews, but this one person happened to be a Jew, happened to be his neighbor, and wasn't very nice to the Prophet. And the Prophet was enduring, was, perseverant, had sabr, right, as we like to often say, right? He dealt with this person's, bad treatment of him, right? He just didn't lash out. And I think that's a good reminder of that, not everything in this life is going to be rosy, because this isn't the final destination. If you want the rosy life, there is a rosy life, وَأُعِدَّتْ, and it has already been prepared for us. as my friend had said, right? But we're going to have to go through some struggle to get there. But bringing it back around to this idea of manhood, womanhood, being rooted as a believer, we can believe in God, but then if we don't act upon that, and it just simply becomes some kind of abstract rubric of beliefs, then we run the risk of being the people that the Prophet warned us about, alayhi salam, when he said what? That a person can live their life as a believer until the last moment, and then they will die somehow as a disbeliever, and then of course vice versa. So I take that kind of as a warning for myself that I wanted to share that, yeah, we have to have correct belief, but we have to have correct actions, and we have to treat people with forbearance, least of all ourselves. And I think this is where the Muslim community, particularly in the West, maybe including Europe, because of some of these attacks and how we're under scrutiny and being viewed, that we focus so much on having unity with non-Muslims. And yeah, we all have a social contract, and that's very true. We should take that very, very seriously. But how are we going to address the fact that we don't have a lot of love between ourselves? Now, some people might say, well, hey, wait a minute, Imam Mark, didn't you just write an article? I just saw you on Twitter with some dude from the Ahmadi community, and you were basically saying he's not Muslim. I mean, this goes back to the issue of creed. Hey, look, if you believe that there's a dude that came after the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and you believe that he is a prophet, or you believe that he was the Mahdi, or you believe that Jesus died in Kashmir, or some other stuff, right? That's the issue of creed, and I have to stand by that, at least of all for the sake of my own soul. But then in my job as imam, I have to teach what is the correct creed. It's not like I'm getting paid on commission to deny people, right? But because we have to define what's correct in creed, still doesn't mean that we shouldn't be working towards a sense of love and unity with Muslims. So I said, one of the often most quoted prophetic narrations is, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه I'm sorry, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. That none of you will attain faith until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. And we love to repeat this prophetic narration, but what we often fail to do is to realize one glaring truth that often I think inhibits this from becoming a reality, is that you can't love who you don't know. And we have a lot of division in the Muslim community. And by that, I don't mean division between Muslims and heretical groups. I'm sorry, I'm not going to move on that position, right? But within the Muslim community, we don't know each other. We have a lot of issues, racism, classism, sexism, all kinds of issues. And we are going to find it very difficult to have faith, because we can't want for our brothers and sisters what we want for ourselves if we don't even know them. So I pray that Allah Ta'ala, God Almighty, will bless us in this month and beyond to take His book seriously, to contemplate it, to read it, right? خياركم من قرأ القرآن وعلمه, right? As Abdullah ibn Mas'ud relates, that the best of you is the one that reads the book for his or herself and that reads it to others, right? Establish that very personal relationship with the Quran, and then work to implement it in your life, so that, again, your everyday life is a reminder and a testament to the last day, right? So living every day for the last day, and then living the life here for what is ultimately the life there. So may Allah Ta'ala bless all of you in this month and beyond, accept from you and raise you in rank. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.